Are you willing to accept Christ's invitation to know Him more intimately, love Him more intensely, and follow Him more closely, and then go out into the world and live His good news? If you say yes, then you could be the 13th apostle. Join Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey, the odd couple of Catholic radio, as they ride the radio waves 2 by 2 to share the goodness, beauty, and truth of Jesus Christ and His church. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the 13th apostle.
Veritas, Unitas, Caritas. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the 13th Apostle, where we explore the good, beautiful, and true of the Catholic faith and the Catholic Church. And the joy, as we do, Habemus Papam. Well, he's American in the fullest sense of that word, because he is from the Americas. This is Tom Caffrey with my partner, Dan Duddy. How you, Dan?
Hey, Tom, how are you?
Good. I'm basking in the glow like I know you are and Catholics around the world are at our Pope Leo the 14th.
Yeah.
So it's and it's you texted me, I texted you, and my daughter Maureen texted me that we have an American Pope. I said no,
Yeah.
because I just checked my news app on my phone, and all it said was white smoke.
Yep.
But I hadn't seen any announcement yet, and so I said, "But there's no way," because no one, anything I listened to or read didn't say American.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so
I got to tell you, so as you know, and maybe our audience could recall, I was in Rome for the canonization of Carlo Acutis, which turned into becoming postponed due to the Pope Francis funeral, and the conclave and the settling or the outcome of the conclave didn't happen until after I was back in the classroom. And the great thing about being in a Catholic high school is that our principal made a school-wide announcement that we had white smoke. And so the buzz happened immediately in my classroom. And I teach theology. So we were pretty much all over it, regarding, the canonization, what it turned into, and so forth. So it was really cool to see the students get genuinely excited about the white smoke. What's that mean, Mr. Duddy? What's going on? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? I'm like, I don't know, but I know right now something's good's going to happen. And here's the thing. So we put it on the screen, and then you saw all the traditions coming out and things I'd never seen before, and the marching and the pomp and the music and. I was watching it, but it wasn't announced that we had an American Pope. Actually, a football parent of mine from oh man, I bet you 12 years ago hit me with a text. We have an American Pope. And I yelled it in the classroom. Here's the cool thing. The kids went nuts. They stood up in a standing ovation. 14-year-olds, you just wouldn't know or think that it meant that much to them, man. It brought tears to my eyes. It was so
that's
cool.
great. That's a
Yeah.
great story. I'm glad
Yeah.
you shared that. Yeah, that isn't wow. That is beautiful. And
So inspiring. So inspiring. Go ahead.
yeah. Yep. There's always hope, right, Danny?
Amen.
Always
Yeah.
hope. Well, it's interesting. So now we have back-to-back South Americans. Well, we say South American because he's also a citizen of Peru.
Mm.
So we could say back-to-back from the Americas, because the Americas is Central and South America.
Hmm.
And for our sake, we're going to include North America as well, right? So North, Central, and South America. The second consecutive order Pope. So we got a Jesuit, first Jesuit in Francis, and then the first Augustinian.
Hmm.
So there's some interesting, and also the machinations, the backroom stuff, behind the scenes, and what's the reason, as we believe, they're not, the Holy Spirit is not the puppeteer
Hmm.
when the Cardinals, on the string and doing it's inspiration.
Yeah.
And I just so everybody's got free will. The Cardinals have free will and say, okay, well, what's the best what's the best strategy? How do we do this? which man is going to make the best pope,
Yeah.
and what do we need in this pope? And so, but anyway, the order, the Augustinian order. Everybody's learning about the Augustinian order now. So, the vast majority of people didn't know. I mean, there's only 3,000, roughly 3,000 friars in the world. So you think of America has a shortage of priests, and we have 50,000 priests in the United States of America.
Yeah.
The Augustinian order has maybe 2,900, we'll say 3,000 friars for the world. And I think there are 12 priories and Cardinal Prevost, before he became Pope Leo. He's required, I think it's every year, he's required to visit all of them. But it's interesting because you look at the founding of the Augustinian order, and they are one of the four main mendicant orders. So the Carmelites, the Franciscans, the Dominicans, and the Augustinians. And so they're meant to go out into the world. They're not part of a diocese, parish. Uh, and the emphasis, and certainly the emphasis of the Augustinian order is pilgrimage. And even, Pope Leo, one of his first messages was, or part of his first message was about, we're going to take this journey together. And the together part is important because even though it wasn't Saint Augustine who started the order, as we know, the Augustinian order, as we know, that was started in the 13th century. It was, well, heavily influenced by the rule of Saint Augustine. And these are all disparate. There were many groups, eremitical, which are hermits, and throughout Italy, and they decided to come together because there was so many of them, and came together, and they did a little sleight of hand with the Pope at the time to get his approval to designate them as an order. And they were because the one Pope said no, because you don't have any antiquity. You're just a group of these small hermit orders, or hermit groups, not orders, hermit groups. But they got together, and they must have been really skilled at politics, because they figured out a way to convince the next Pope that no, we are traced back in some way to St. Augustine, because we go by the rule of St. Augustine, which St. Augustine did put together. So so much of it is, when you think about how scattered they were, one of the main things is this, and this is from St. Augustine, and this is the current Augustinian group, is community.
Yeah.
That's why he said walking together, Pope Leo walking together. So it's
Yeah, and it's in how you started the show, Unitas, unity. Yeah, they're huge into unity and community. And I like to think that Augustine himself is definitely reflected in the Augustinians, as we would expect he would be, although he is not the direct founder of the Augustinians. But because of the things that I most love about Augustine, I think we're going to see that in the spirit, especially of Catholic social teaching. Augustine was one that did go to the peripheries and did preach to the homeless, those that were completely disengaged with the community because people were so disgraced by them and disregarded them, and they were uneducated, and, they were idiots to the culture, morons to the culture. And Augustine went there and, showed them what's now that Augustinian education, where you, once again, truth, unity, and love, and I think that's gonna permeate. It's gonna come out much in consistency, I think, with Francis and his where he put his emphasis on social teaching. But the other thing I love about, getting back to the foundation of Augustine himself and family and community, is that his journey was long, and you mentioned this going to be a journey. They're journey based, and pilgrims. There's a pilgrimage within Augustine that lived in Augustine. And he found his conversion really from the prayer of his very own mother, St. Monica. So I believe and I hope that there's going to be some forging of family through this papacy as well with Leo the 14th, and I hope for that and I pray for that. I have a really good feeling about this because I love Augustine. I love his coming from the dirt type guy, and he gives me the same feeling, Leo. He gives me that same type of. Well, we know Americans, right, Tom? We know Americans. We know the culture, and we know their toughness. And I can see that toughness in him that Augustine had, but that grace-filled desire and that restless heart that Augustine always spoke of. Lord, I am restless. My heart is restless, and it won't rest until it rests in you. Beautiful stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I mean, he obviously he's born in Chicago, raised in Chicago, but he reflected that journeying because he was a missionary. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously he ended up in Peru and was there. I mean, he's a citizen. I'm not. I'd have to. I don't know, right? I don't know how many cases there are where somebody who's a cardinal was born in one country and is a citizen of that country, of course, and then
Mm.
became a citizen of another country. And so you had people in Peru celebrating, we have our Pope. It's because, for the obvious reason. And I texted my son Kevin earlier. I haven't heard back from him, but to ask him if there were any celebrations that I think I'm trying to remember whether he might have been, I think he was here because he was visiting for a week. He might have been here. He was here
I
during
believe he was. Yeah. From what I think you're.
election.
Yeah. Yep.
So I mean, in some ways, it's too bad that he missed that from the standpoint of because Peru is the most Catholic South American country, and
Mm.
so and Kevin's living and working there, and so I was just and Kevin has sent many videos and photos of various Catholic processions throughout Lima, and so they take it real seriously, uh, as you might imagine. So I'm sure there were a lot of celebrations, but I don't know whether there's any remnants of it now. But I I think that you had mentioned carrying on from Francis, and I do agree. From the standpoint of his continuity, but the continuity. I mean, I know you know this. Our audience should know this. The continuity is of the teachings of the church.
Right.
You know, and so every pope's got some similarities. You have to because by dint of being Catholic, right? So it's just that okay, well, what's your emphasis going to be? What's your pontificate going to be known as?
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, so I think that there was something about with the rule of Saint Augustine that he put together. Uh, he was big about community. In fact, when he was a reluctant bishop. I mean, he was made bishop almost by acclamation, but he didn't agree to it. He actually made condition, and one of his condition was that he be allowed to uh, have pretty much a small monastery uh, to start a monastic order. So if he became bishop, he wanted this because he didn't want to be alone and lonely.
Mm.
So it's in fact in his you refer to his confessions, that great work of his greatest work, uh, that he didn't believe in an isolated faith experience, and we shouldn't,
Right.
you
Right.
know, he's in fact his one quote is, "I couldn't be happy without friends."
Mm, yeah, yeah. Which you can relate to because friendship is huge in your organizing principles. It's what kind of makes you you as in your discipleship and as, someone who's out there evangelizing the world. Friendship is big in you and it's very, very inspiring. So I think that you can relate to that. There's something else about Augustine and Augustinians that I can relate to with regards to perhaps my organizing principles is the word charism that I like to use within my principles when I teach and when I give my talks and so forth. And you know that. And simply put, they are the powers and talents that are conferred upon us in creation. The Augustinians are really big not only on fanning the fires that make us us individually in celebration of creation, but also taking that using inclusiveness to bring it into the strength of the community where you are playing a vital and crucial role in your essentiality, and there's consequentiality in your life. So you have a will. So not only do they feel strongly that we cannot get into heaven without the grace of God, and that's huge in the Augustinians, but we must flex our will and go seek the will of God with that restless heart and take our charism with us, which we are so blessed by the sheer nature that it's created into us. And that's what will get us into heaven, is the tangling of our will with the grace of God's. But to be really, really happy, and happiness is huge. It's a huge component as well in the Augustinians, is to seek happiness. But we seek happiness when we satisfy our charism, the powers and talents that live within, for the sake of the generosity that we need to put into our community. Yeah, great stuff. Yep.
Indeed, it is. And I had mentioned to you when we were exchanging some text messages about this episode, and it that it hit me probably a day after the election, that my dear friend's brother,
Yeah.
Father Gilbert, as I know him, Father Gilbert Ruiz, Ruiz Centina, uh, he was an Augustinian friar, and I was reading. I was just reading, going through a couple of his books. He was from the Philippines, but he spent the last, I think, he was transferred to Spain and lived out the rest of um, his priesthood and life in Leon, Spain, and it was, you notice, I mean, he was highly regarded and won a lot of literary awards in the Philippines and in Spain. He ran a parish in the Bronx. Uh, so he was quadrilingual. He spoke and wrote four languages. But I mean, he testified to that, in terms of mendicant, he was traveling the world to do his work as an Augustinian friar. And I had the great blessing and honor of writing the introduction to his last book, and which he finished 2 weeks before he died from COVID. And I have to say, I'm going to say this in humility, Dan, but I feel a little awkward saying it. Right before turning on the mic, I was doing some research, and I want to read one thing about him in Wikipedia. It's the first time I've seen this, and my name was in there.
Oh, really?
It was about his last book, and it was about the intro that I written for it. So I was shocked to read that. So I can't say I know Augustinian because I never met him, but he just, when it finally hit me, and I was thinking about some of the things that I read that Pope Leo had said and had written, and then looking back at some of his history, and then I was thinking of what I knew about Father Gilbert, and I thought, it's easy to, once you're aware of something, you can say, oh yeah, well, I'm aware of these similarities. I'm not sure I would have been if I hadn't done so much, like you've done so much preparation for our episode here. But there are common themes, and you and I, well, we've talked about this. We do know, we each know, and some of them are separate. People who have an isolated faith. I can think of two people in particular, and And I can't imagine living that life.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the things when I was watching some videos, I don't know what the title is, but the head of all the Augustinian order right now, he's a Spaniard living he's in the main priory in Rome, and Father Manuel, I'm certain that's that I know I have father correct. I'm pretty sure the Manuel.
It's a good start. Yeah.
And there was so much. They were walking in Rome throughout Rome, and then they were talking and interviewing. And all of a sudden, the camera would cut to this city and that city around the world, and the joy is just so great to
Yeah.
see the joy. Just we're not there, but we have the joy. We have a joy with our own community. So
Yeah, yeah, it's very cool. And I hit a pizzeria today on my way home, a pizza joint, and with a true Italian woman there from Naples herself. And I asked her the question, what do the Italians feel? How do the Italians feel about the American Pope? And she said they are doing backflips. They love this man. They love what he stands for. One thing that has been coming out in some similar conversations, I know we're getting low on time. Firstly, on the American side, when you get into social networking and stuff, there was a distrust that, or a way overthinking or integration of American politics with this new pope. Maybe this new pope is here to quash what's going on in American politics, those types of things, whatever you want to call them. If our pope, and I believe that he absolutely is and will be, is truly Augustinian, St. Augustine did not enjoy politics at all in my research on him. He distrusted politics, and he felt that a true politician was not necessarily a good person. They were coercive. He raised the church above politics, and I believe and I hope that what's going to happen is that this church of ours, our beloved church, will be resurrected way above any influence or any idea of any influence of any world politics. And I believe that this our Pope Leo the 14th is that man, and I hope that he is.
so it's so great that two things have happened. Hearing your message, and it made me think of what we've talked about before in the context of what you just said, rising above the politics. Rome was falling, and Augustine rallied the troops, homily after homily, written homily, spoken homily throughout Rome to stop the Christians, the new Christians, from leaving the faith, thinking that they were opposing, that the pagan gods were mad at them for becoming Christians. So Rome was falling, but he stood fast no matter what was going, no matter what was happened. And look what's happened. The church survived and thrived and grew. The second and last thing is I just got two texts from my son, Kevin, from Lima. He said, there's not been much time. So, I mean, there's not much time. So, all right, Danny,
How
what,
about that? How about
what's
that?
coming up next?
Yeah. Stay tuned, folks, for the Angelus and your prayer intentions with Peter and Jemmy.
WQPHradio.org. Thank you. God bless you, Danny.
God bless you, Tommy, and God bless you all.
Thank you for listening to the 13th Apostle with Dan Duddy and Tom Caffrey. For more information on Dan, visit his website at www.danduddy.com or email dcduddy@gmail.com. Tom's website is faithpilgrims.com or email trcaffrey@faithpilgrims.com. How about you? Will you be the 13th Apostle?